In Psalm magic, sometimes we come across the phrase, the fear of God. It's such an important phrase to understand. Fear is the suppression of love. Fear is a belief that we're separate. Why in the world would we want to fear God? We have to understand what is meant by the fear of God. It really should be the awe of God. It's a misdefinition of the word fear when people think that they're supposed to be afraid of God. God has no desire for us to be afraid of them. They're not happy if we're afraid of them. They want us to love them. They want us to connect with them. To be afraid of them is reinforcing an idea that we're separate from them, which is the birth of all fear. But if we understand that it means the awe of God, and that awe, when applied to anything but God, does produce fear. If you have the fear of God, you won't be afraid of anything in the world. In other words, if you reserve awe for the Creator, then anything that was created by the Creator can't harm you because you're not having awe for that. If you have awe about anything that's going on in the world, that's a fear-producing experience. But if you reserve that awe for the creative principle, then you have your power in alignment. And fear is something that we really need to address in our lives because it's what brings about all of our discontentment. This idea of fear comes from the experience that we're separate from our good. We're separate from our source, that we're all alone. And the ego in and of itself is a fearful experience. Your whole worldview, when you're coming from the perspective of the ego, is based on fear. Whereas when you're coming from the perspective of your soul, your whole worldview is based on love. Your soul knows that it's connected to the infinite, that there's no other source but the infinite. Any manifestation in the world has no creative power, therefore there's nothing to fear. The ego doesn't perceive things that way. The ego perceives things as very powerful outside of ourselves, that we in fact are powerless in the presence of everything in the world, and that we either need to learn how to conquer those people or situations, the perceptions of the world, or we are going to be conquered by the perceptions of the world. And that's why this world is such a fearful place. And that's why it's so challenging to ever have a moment of peace here. The dominant thought form in this world is that of fear. Whereas from the soul's perspective, that doesn't exist. It's not even a concept. The soul doesn't perceive fear. The soul only has love. And that's why the soul lives in what the Psalms call heaven. And heaven is not a place, it's a perspective. It's a way of looking at the world. It's a worldview, an overarching thought form or thought system. The two can never reconcile. You can't have love and fear in the same space. That can't happen. There are quite literally two different worlds you can exist in. The world that is being projected onto the screen of space by the ego, or the world that is created for you in the moment by your Creator. And the soul lives in one world and the ego lives in the other. And what our consciousness chooses to involve itself in is where we exist. Fear usually feels uncontrollable, and it usually feels like something that's happening to us. You can take control of your fear, and you must take control of your fear, because fear is something that happens because of misperceptions, how you're choosing to look at the world. If you're choosing to look at the world from a fearful point of view, that must be changed. The thoughts of it must be changed. You can't ask for the effects of your thoughts to be changed. There's no way in the universe that you're going to get the infinite to go against its own laws just for you. I want to jump off a building, but I don't want to fall. That's arrogant thinking. I want to think whatever I want to think, but I don't want the effects of it. It's not possible. So you don't want to ask the infinite, please take away my fear. because it can't any more than it can make sure you don't fall when you jump off of a building. It's not going to go against the law of cause and effect. Fear is the effect of a way of thinking, a way of perceiving. And the way of thinking and the way of perceiving are your choice. But those are the things that you can ask for help with. Ask for help in regards to the realm of cause, not the realm of effect. If you're working magic to take care of a bill, you want to work on the realm of cause, not on the realm of effect. You don't want to say, please take this bill from me so much as please take the thought form of this bill and change it so that it turns into something better. When we ask for the effects of something to be taken from us or to be changed for us, but we aren't willing to change the thoughts, we're asking for the impossible. And the same goes with fear. If you're afraid of something, that's an effect. It's not a cause. It's an effect of viewing the world through the eyes of the ego rather than through the eyes of the soul. And that's a decision that we do make. Anytime you decide to just go along with the thought, that's still a decision. When your mind just starts to wander down pathways and you don't take charge of it, that's still a choice you're making. And the reason why we're so afraid is because we don't discipline our minds. We don't choose to allow our inner guide to help us think properly. It's always there ready for us to get the help that we need. It's never gone anywhere. But we usually don't think to turn and ask that inner guide, what should I think? Guide my thoughts, guide my decisions, guide my perceptions. We usually just ask for it to help us fix something that's already manifest. And what that shows is that we're very confused about how things work because we don't want to believe our minds are that powerful. We don't want to believe that we have that much power because if we knew how powerful our minds were, we wouldn't allow our minds to be so lazy. We wouldn't allow ourselves to have such great amounts of time where we just let our minds run amok. We would constantly be asking for help, constantly be asking for guidance at every turn. If you knew that you were carrying around a nuclear weapon and you knew that it was going to be very problematic for the entire world if you accidentally did something wrong, but there was a guide there telling you what to do, I bet you'd say, now what? Now what? Now what do I do? Now how do I do it? If you've never flown a plane, but for whatever reason, the pilot couldn't fly it and you had to get behind the controls, but your guide was there showing you how to do it, I bet you would ask, now what? Now what do I do? Now what do I do? You would be hyper aware that you had a guide there and that you didn't know what you were doing. You'd be very willing to be guided and shown. But those things are nothing compared to the power of our minds and the power of our thinking to create our world for us, because all thought produces a result on some level or another. When we allow ourselves to indulge in thoughts that create fear, we are proving to ourselves and to the world that we don't understand how powerful we are. We don't understand that we have assistance available to us at all times. Some of us have never spent much time with our inner guide. Some of us don't even know that guide exists. Even though if we look back honestly, we can say there are times I've definitely felt like I've been guided. I felt like I've made a better choice by listening to an inner voice. There are times when it's happened spontaneously. We want to allow ourselves to purposefully spend time in silence with this guide, so that it's available and accessible to us easily because we've conditioned our minds to listen. And that way, when we're in situations and we don't know how to think, when we're in situations and it's obvious to us that we are in a state of fear, that we can ask for a new way of seeing things. We can ask for a new way of thinking about things so that we can use the power of our minds in such a way as to create things and experiences in the world that most people would call miraculous. Most people would call them miraculous, but once we recognize what we're doing by listening to our inner guide and using our minds properly, it's not really so miraculous. It's actually pretty easy, pretty normal. If a person from the 12th century came in and saw you turning on a light and cooking food on a stove and putting dishes in a dishwasher, would say, "You're a sorcerer. Get thee behind me, Satan." It would be so scary for them to see how powerful you are. But as far as you're concerned, it's just normal. You're living in a time where we've evolved in such a way that those things are just normal. The same goes with magic and with the workings of our mind. Instead of asking for help bailing me out of those circumstances, I'm going to ask for help in using my mind in such a way that I have an experience of the world that is an experience of love rather than fear. That takes care of a plethora of situations. Rather than trying to fix all of these problems that have arisen because of our need to view the world through the eyes of fear, instead of that, which is like needle in a haystack, what we're doing is we're asking our inner guide to help use our mind in a powerful way. And when we do that, we start experiencing a life of our soul, a life of love, and a life free from fear, a life free from fear. You'll never be afraid of anything in this world again if you have the fear of God. And the fear of God is not being afraid of God. The fear of God is awe, the sense of awe at that immense power out of which we are created and are an extension of. The power of God is our power. We just don't want to know how powerful we are. It's so much easier to just fall into the ego concepts of I'm nothing, I'm a little cog, easily victimized by the world, afraid of everything. It's so much easier for us to wrap our heads around than this idea that we are more powerful than a nuclear plant, immensely powerful. And if we allow ourselves to be guided in our thinking by that inner guide, we can create experiences and lives for ourselves that are so beyond our current recognition of what things look like, that it's as if we were the new person. People might come back to us in a couple of years after learning this and say, "I don't even recognize you anymore. You're not even the same person anymore." Because you're no longer afraid of things in the world because you have the fear of God, that awe of your Creator. Recognizing what that really means, that not only is your Creator awesomely powerful, but so are you, because you're an extension of that. Because there's a big fire in the fire pit and a spark shoots out of that doesn't mean that spark isn't hot. It's just as hot as that fire. There may be many different fingers of flame shooting out of that fire, and they're all hot. They will all burn in the same way, and that's you. You're an extension, just like a beam of light from the star. You have that power. The idea of being afraid in this world is the way the ego wants to keep us down, because the ego was created out of a habit of thinking that we are separate and insignificant. And it's a type of self-destruction, and it's a type of arrogance. And we're just all in the habit of it. And the only way to break that habit is to utilize that inner guide that each and every one of us has been given. And that guide will show up in all kinds of different ways for everybody. Sometimes it will be a plethora of guides. Sometimes it will be just that little voice that guides you. Sometimes it will be a totem animal. Whatever is most appropriate for you. It brings you a sense of peace. It brings you a sense of understanding your own power. It's never going to try to keep you down. It's always going to bring you back into how powerful your mind is. The mind is so powerful, so mighty, and always active, always creating. And your thoughts and your beliefs together, they have a strength to create real change. But this power, when you understand it for what it is, can be very intimidating. And many people are afraid of their own thoughts. They would rather believe that their minds don't have any influence. Believing that you're not that important, believing that you're not that powerful, might reduce your sense of anxiety at times, but it weakens the respect that you need to have for your mind. Every thought matters. Understanding the power of your mind is how you overcome fear. That's how you free yourself from fear. When you get into a prayerful experience or an invocation, or you're working with your inner guide, instead of saying, please free me from fear, instead, please help me choose the thoughts that I should think so that I can access my power. If you're experiencing fear, you know you're looking through the eyes of the ego. When you're looking through the eyes of the ego, you're going to see a fearful world. That's nothing to feel guilty about. You're just being a human being. But when you notice that, you can say, please help me to see things differently. Please help me see through the eyes of my soul, not the eyes of my ego. Acknowledging that you're experiencing fear then is a positive, because it gives you a reminder that it's time to ask for help to see things in a different way and to use your mind more powerfully. Asking not so much to have all of the issues and all the problems and all of our fears to be fixed, asking instead to be taught how to use our minds powerfully, how to become the powerful sorcerer, become the powerful witch that knows the power of my mind. But then you're going to have to give up the laziness in the mind. We have to take responsibility for our fearful thoughts and recognize, if I have the fear of God, I have nothing to be afraid of. And the fear of God means what? Awe. When we experience fear, there's always pain. It's a painful experience. The fear of God is the only type of fear that you can experience that doesn't have pain. I call it ecstasy. Ecstasy. When you have that ecstatic feeling of oneness, that you feel the presence of your Creator, and you recognize that you are so close to that Creator that there's nothing that you can be closer to, that's the fear of God. And it's a wonderful feeling. And that's why if you have that, you have nothing to fear in the world. So if you're fearing something in the world, get back to the fear of God instead, and you will rise above it. And you will have access to that inner guidance that can always show you how to use your mind in a better way, so that you can become the most powerful witch you can be, or the most powerful sorcerer, or the most powerful human being that you can be. And you can transform your life, and you can be free from fear. And you're no longer subject to the whims of your ego, because you've disciplined yourself. You've become an adept. And that's all an adept is. Someone who has trained their mind and is no longer under the influence of their ego mind. And that ego mind constantly is asking us to fall asleep and do things by rote rather than consciously. So the fear of God simply means the awe of the creative force of the universe. And if you have the fear of God, you have nothing to fear. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.